Major escalations right now in Europe and Russia. I'm going to highlight that first and foremost. Then we need to talk about what's happening in California because it has gone from bad to worse. Power prices are absolutely skyrocketing, and there is a very legitimate threat of actual rolling blackouts taking place. Then I want to break down exactly what this means, tell you what traders are doing, looking at all of this from a top-down view, and the whole explanation will come in this video here. So let's begin right away. Here we have the main article that I wanted to show you, and that is Russia switches off Europe's main gas pipeline until sanctions are lifted. This is really important because there was this understanding that the Nord Stream 1 pipeline would be shut down for a few days. It would be routine maintenance. It would be back up. There was a suggestion at the same time saying, you know what, maybe they're not going to actually bring it back up online because they can use it as leverage. And it seems like right now there's kind of two stories happening simultaneously. So you could see here Gazprom has previously said it was halting flows through the Nord Stream 1 because of a technical fault. They're still kind of saying that, but it gets a little deeper. And let me show you here. You could see right now that Russia's gas supplies to Europe via the Nord Stream 1 pipeline will not resume in full until the collective West lifts sanctions against Moscow over its invasion of Ukraine, according to the Kremlin. And I'll actually give you the quotes themselves. This is according to Dmitry Peskov, and that is Putin's spokesman. Okay, this is not some analyst saying, this is not BBC, and this is not another news channel. We're getting it direct from the sources here. Okay, so they're basically saying you sanctioned us, whether that is the EU, UK, and Canada. You're saying you do that to us, we are going to retaliate. Okay, there's the quotes in here. I'll show you. If you look at this, quote, the problems pumping gas came about because the sanctions Western countries introduced against our country and several companies. There are no other reasons that could have caused this pumping problem. That's what he's saying. That's Putin's spokesman. And, you take what you want from that, but it is very clear. So this needs to get back up and running. And we're going to talk more about the effects of this in a couple minutes. But I just wanted to highlight that first and foremost because it is so huge. Think about the implications of, first of all, Nord Stream 2 never came online. And now Nord Stream 1 being cut off, even if it's a week, even if it's a month, this is going to be very significant. We have this. This is just a diagram to give you a little example for those who aren't aware. Nord Stream 1 pipeline, you could see where it's coming from in Russia, comes all the way through, lands in Germany. So this is very important, not just for Germany, but for other countries in Europe as well. It comes through Germany, and you see how the reliance on Germany, Germany reliance on gas coming from Russia. You saw that. You noticed the tensions between the two countries. It was very clear. This is just to break it down for those who are unaware. And by the way, Nord Stream 2, you can see it right beside. We'll talk about more in a second. Europe's still guzzling Russian oil with a ban just months away. You remember that? They're going to ban Russian oil. We'll talk more about that. But here you can see European nations still take about 1 million barrels a day of Russian seaborne crude. And that would be an issue, of course, if suddenly they ban it and, oh, wait a minute, we really desperately need this. With just 3 months to go until a full European ban on seaborne imports of Russian oil enter into force, the continent remains very dependent on Moscow for supply. Think about that. Think about the implications of this. Okay, very serious right now. You got December 5th. December 5th, it's coming up. It's going to happen real fast. You can see Russia's crude shipments to Europe from January up until right now, and what's been happening. Yes, they've reduced their dependence on Russia. There's no doubt. However, look at what's been happening. If you take this very, very real situation that's been going on right now at this time, you are watching the prices rising significantly. It's not just a little bit, okay? It is significant. They need more. They need more coming in. They need it from all angles. If Norway can provide some crude, if Norway can provide some gas, if another country could come in and Qatar can do a deal, and Russia and Ukraine and whoever is able to provide anything, that needs to happen, okay? Because it looks like there is more of a need now than ever before. If you've got a stockpile or if you got the resource, countries seem to be wanting to buy it. Okay, that's one factor. At the same time, there's kind of this deflationary pull that's occurring in many different ways, different commodities and different aspects. And I've talked about that in the previous video to this one, but I think it's important to watch what happens with commodities and with the economy itself. Because as many of the comments, and by the way, I appreciate those comments, have said, is it that energy prices are too high, so the businesses and the manufacturers are shutting down, or is it the fact that there is not enough demand to really require so much happening? Two things to think about there. Look at this here. You'll see more into it as you look at California. California ratchets up grid emergency as blackouts loom. Grid operator asks residents to conserve more amid heat wave. Prospect of blackouts underscores how grid are vulnerable. Look, do you think for a second that people are really going to be okay if the grid goes down? I don't think so, especially in an area where you have very little self-sufficiency in the major cities. People are not going to be okay, and that is a simple matter of fact. So you've got this happening. It's California, but it's not just California. They're the one that are kind of dealing with this head on. And so I'm interested to see what happens here. But you can see it right now, California's electricity demand. That green line right there, it is above the trend that we have seen. So I'm a little bit, just concerned to see this when you look at previous years and their demand, even just coming in these previous weeks, you look at it being quite high. They've never seen this actually, from what I understand. You look at the average day ahead prices in Southern California, suddenly out of nowhere. Okay, it's yes, it is very hot right now, no doubt, but just to see a spike like this has been dramatic to say the least, and it is literally double where it was 1 month ago. So imagine that, double the price. That would hurt a lot of people immediately. This is something as you go in and you look at what's going on. It's not just about power prices necessarily, but the fact that the resources could be cut off from you. So just take a look at this, and there's a couple stages, and I want to show you stage 2 and stage 3. So here it is. If resources dip too low, energy regulators could initiate a stage 2 emergency, which would cause the state to dip into its emergency power reserves, electricity from last-minute imports, and generators. He estimated that the state has about 3,000 megawatts as a backup, which provide a small, just a buffer. That's it, okay? If a stage 3 is reached and power must be cut, state regulators would ask utilities to determine the best way to drop their usage, likely rotating across systems, hopefully for short durations. Quote, rolling blackouts are a possibility today. And when I have said this before, people have said, no way, that's not going to happen. No way, you're a liar, you're this, you're that. And look at what's going on right before our very eyes in 2022, a very real possibility where you have something that only occurs in developing nations that are just, they don't have a stable grid. They don't have, a lot of the things that developed nations do. And yet it's happening. It's happening before our very eyes. People are saying, where's the crisis, buddy? I don't see it. Well, you got to wake up. If you don't wake up, you got your head in the sand, you won't see that crisis. Maybe you'll feel it, but it might be indirect. Here we have it. OPEC Plus slashes oil production by 100,000 barrels per day as prices fall. So here we have it, not pumping more oil, not pushing more onto the markets. So I think perhaps it looks like OPEC wants higher prices. That seems to be the case. Maybe there's less of a demand. I don't know. But when you look at the data itself, there certainly could be less demand, but that's generally not the way it works with OPEC. It seems to be a little bit more about keeping prices where they desire at the time. This is interesting. You've heard what happened with California. They say, hey, we're going to ban electric cars. Like 2 weeks later, they say, don't charge your cars. You're not allowed to. The 17 states that follow California's emission standards and might now ban gas cars as extreme weather sees electric car owners stopped from charging vehicles in the Golden State. So if you look down here, you could see it. It's just saying the states that could ban gas cars. You look at this, there's no, definite answer to this at all. Oregon, Washington, New York, and others. We'll see what happens. You know, it all depends. It all depends on what's going to happen here. But I do really am really concerned about people, especially that are really at the edge. I think there's a big concern right now because the power prices are not going to stop. UK pubs face closure crisis unless price of a pint soars to £20. My friends, if you like to drink your beer, I think there is a big concern. If it's going to go to 20 a pint, that's going to hit a lot of people. Now, that might be at the pubs, and the pub price is going to be different than if you go to the store and buy it or whatever, but still, this is significant. And yes, you don't need to have it, but look at what happens. The economy, this is driving the economy in part, okay? UK facing beer shortage as key carbon dioxide producer pauses operations. So maybe you're going to get your beer, but maybe you're not. Okay, so maybe you're going to get it expensive, or maybe you're just not going to get it at all. This is not so good for beer drinkers out there. And this is the last thing I wanted to touch on right now. You stayed to this part of the video, so I want to show you this really key intelligence here that I'm always getting, and sometimes I try to throw them in as tidbits, but I'm just going to focus that energy into having this hopefully at the end of each video. And you can see energy fiasco explained. Nord Stream 2 was not approved by Germany, and Russia lost major revenue as a result. So they built the pipeline, infrastructure's there, they're ready to go, let's make it happen. There's delays, they're pushing it forward, what's happening? Then all of a sudden they say no approval. And then what happens? Ukraine happened. Okay, Nord Stream 1 was shut off and may remain off until sanctions are lifted. So they're really putting the boot on the throat of Europe. Okay, massive pressure on Europe has them in a very weak negotiating position. So Europe is saying, hey, we are doing our thing, but at the same time, we're so reliant on you. So it's not really good. Putin's really has a strong foot forward in that case. Total ban on Russian oil seems highly unlikely. Also, how can they come to negotiations and not lose? I mean, think about that for a second. You're saying we are really desperate for what you have, but at the same time, they're going to say, oh, but you got to deal with all these sanctions. You can't do this and that. Russia can just say, we can wait a bit, because they know Europe cannot resolve this in the next few months. And last but not least, traders who successfully ride this inevitable price action could generate spectacular gains. That's what's happening right now, not just with, I'm not talking about retail traders necessarily, though some can. If you look at what's happening with Goldman Sachs and all these other companies out there who are going to be benefiting from this, certainly there are some that will, okay? And you look at their activities, price goes up, they make a lot of money. Price goes down, they make a lot of money. And they see the geopolitical activities and know how to deal with all of that. So that could be something you're interested in. I try to bring all of that information to you. If you appreciate it, subscribe to the channel, because this is the place where you get the latest and greatest intel. I do appreciate you coming here. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.